All right. All right. So I just started the recording. I will formally introduce the Q&A in just a moment. We're giving it just a second and to see if there's any other people coming. And we just got started. So um, I'm just gonna reply to what you and I, Maria, were just talking about for a moment about the container and feeling it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I always have to take a drink. It's so, I think it's in my imprinting. So Maria was just saying that she's been really feeling the container, and I don't know all the details of what she meant to say, but um yeah, I feel that happening too. The work is starting to, there's different periods where things wax and wane and things start to reboot and come together. And I'm feeling that too right now, especially with, I'll just say this, having to do with our Q&A, that oh, I'm so happy you could make it. I just saw who just came on. So this time is so potent on the planet. Just there's, if you, everybody can kind of feel that there's change in the air, but what exactly that change is kind of in the unknown. It's in the underworld, and we are actually building it and allowing it to come through us right now. So I'm just so happy to be here with everyone. And the divine feminine wisdom is where it is at for this time in the world. It really is. And we'll talk about that. I have some questions that people sent in, and I'll get to those in a moment. So I'm going to have everybody just mute for a moment. I want to say I invited a couple of people who were kind of new and just to come in and experience a live Q&A. All right. So let me see, it's recording. Okay. So welcome to our live Q&A. It's October 23rd, 2024. And we are meeting the Divine Feminine Wisdom School, which is the year-long platform. We, as often as we can, will do a monthly live Q&A where we invite everybody on. If there's a lot going on and I'm doing a lot of classes where you're already attending extra, sometimes we'll miss a month or two. But I also like to invite anyone who is studying in light body yoga or light body tantra to come and participate. So, because those are self-study courses, and if you do them, it gives you the opportunity to come and ask a question and really work even one-on-one, even within the Q&A. So it's really good to be here today. I have questions that I can start with. Lotus sent some. You guys can be on camera or off. I'll have everyone mute once we really get going. And then if you want to ask a live question, I'll have you. I'm going to pull up your question, Lotus, because it was so powerful. So we'll just start. Let's dig right in. You know who I am. I'm Shannon Port. And this was a really great questions coming from Lotus. All right, here we are. Who always, by the way, is just so deep the way you tune in. So, all right. I'm asking, okay. Oh, looks like someone else is here. Just one second. Okay. Oh, wait, someone just wrote to me and sent a question. I had a feeling that would happen a lot. So how do we transmute the Roman Empire? Oh, somebody just sent this. How do we transmute the Roman Empire? Oh, that's huge. I'm just gonna jot that down. We'll get to that one. How do we transmute the Roman Empire? Stuck in the womb, so much power there. Is it love? Capital, the crone, the maiden, the mother, reclaiming the power given. That stream. I absolutely feel this. Okay. So I have that jotted down. So I'm going to start with Lotus, who sent these questions. So okay. All right. Just one second. Sorry. I wanted to hear the way she wrote it was so beautiful. I want to use her language. So, okay, here they are. All right. Hi, dears. Thank you for this Q&A. My question is, what is the dark feminine? Is it the wounded feminine? Is it the divine feminine, empowered? the empowered feminine versus the dark feminine, wounded feminine. So first she asks, is it the wounded feminine or is it the dark empowered feminine versus the wounded feminine? Or is divine feminine both light feminine and dark feminine together? The healed, empowered, soft feminine versus wounded in survival and lack feminine. I like that, lack feminine. Would it be possible to give examples? Yes. Okay. All right. So let's start with what is the dark feminine? And I think I've jotted a couple things when I first got this from you. So also the dark feminine, and I know some of you are in the dark feminine is also the the theme of the upcoming 8-week course I'm doing called Goddess Ritual, the Holy Descent of Inanna. And it's a whole 8-week ritual around reclaiming the dark feminine. And so it's kind of perfect timing that you asked. We just entered the Scorpio season, so the sun is just now in Scorpio, which Scorpio really holds as an archetype, the dark feminine. So the dark feminine, the feminine consciousness, which is known in mystical teachings and metaphysics as the subconscious realm. And so when we think of yin and yang, we think of the dark as the unseen world. And it's also the unseen consciousness that we all hold. We all have a subconscious mind. Now, the underworld that we live in is also considered the subconscious realm. So you could even say we live in the shadow world because matter is a reflection. It's like a negative reflecting of a higher dimension. And so the polarity between the dimension that's right above us works with this physical world. And when we understand the dark feminine, we have access to creating that negative or that blueprint. In the same way, if you remember how we used to get photographs developed, we used to get film developed, and you'd take the film from the camera and go into a dark room where you'd pull the film and you would get the negative, and from the negative, you would cast the image. So the dark feminine works much like that. When we understand how to work with the dark feminine, we have access to using our creative imagination in a way that is absolutely profound. The conscious mind, which is the often considered to be a masculine side of our consciousness, but the conscious mind can also control the dark feminine. So, Lotus, to answer part of that question, when we feel that we have no access to our own inner dark realm, it's as if it's being controlled by something on the outside. There's a saying that if you don't control your own or master your own subconscious mind, somebody else will run it for you. This is what we're talking about, the feminine dimension. And this is so on the table right now because of technology. And I've been talking a lot about it in the past recent videos. Technology has direct access to our dark feminine. And so if we do not understand um, our own inner power at this time, as technology, the algorithms amp up, we'll feel more and more chaotic. Like, oh, like I just can't get away from it. Everything is pulling at me. Everything is imprinting me with an outer image into my subconscious and then getting a reaction from me. So, okay, let me just look at your question again. So to start with, the dark feminine is the feminine realm of the unseen world. There's so many different layers we could say. In the dark feminine, the reason you hear of the wounded feminine, the rage, you'll hear people talk about holy rage and woman's rage. and the collective feminine rage is because in the dark realms of the mother are stored both the angels and the demons. And so that feminine dimension it holds the powers and the principalities that you hear about in the scriptures. In other words, the angels and demons work through the feminine dimension. And if we're not aware of our inner dimension, we can be used. So also stored in that. So let me just look at the wounded feminine. The wounded feminine, the rage, is the unprocessed trauma that we all carry in our DNA. And so that you can tell this is a really big topic. We in science and epigenetics, and I talked a lot about it in the last video. If you haven't seen the last video on YouTube, there's a lot in there. But our dark consciousness holds our collective Akashic record. It holds the memories of trauma. That's why we're talking about kind of the witch hunts and the inquisitions, and also the traumatizing of the feminine, even as the partner in love, as the mother, as the priestess in the world. And when I say priestess, I mean it's like the word that covers the artists, the teachers, the scientists, the spiritual revealers, all kind of fall under that priestess archetype, which is a high archetype for the woman. So if we're carrying that woundedness, so in Inanna, we're going to work with the very process of how the soul has been stripped as it made its way into matter. We start out as this high holy goddess. We're going to work really in a beautiful way that I haven't worked before with Inanna, and then we descend. Through that descent, we lose our powers. And so we willingly, when we decide to incarnate, we willingly take on a veil. Our consciousness is veiled, and that is what is the subconscious realm, the dark feminine. Everything that we cannot remember is stored in the subconscious dimension. Now, the subconscious dimension has a subjective side, meaning it's your personal memories. We each have our own personal DNA that comes. If you've worked with me, you know privately we do a lot of work with the mother's lineage and the father's lineage to really look at what our DNA put stored in our subconscious mind. We carry all of the imprints of our mother's lineage and our father's lineage, and then our own past lives, every lifetime we've come through, and then whatever imprinting we take on, karma in this lifetime, all of it is stored there. It's like it also, the dark feminine also is where God lives. It's also the womb of I want to just wait with that because we'll do a moment where we take to experience that. So you can see how much is in the dark feminine. So to answer your question, is it the wounded feminine? It absolutely can be. When we are not empowered, we are constantly triggered and constantly reacting, sometimes to very real wounds or attacks that are coming at us, but we don't have our power, and so we just have to react. And we either, through those reactions, we either suppress our true feelings, and that's what you'll hear when you hear a lot of different psychologists talking about repressed rage or anger, how especially even the feminine have been taught to push it down. And so when that builds up, it's like something that's ready to combust. The anger comes to a point where that dark feminine becomes like Lilith, the shadow of Lilith, or it becomes like Kali, ready to rage and go out. I think if you've seen not the House of Dragon, but the Game of Thrones. At the end of Game of Thrones, which was incredibly filled with a lot of violence and crazy things, but on an archetypal level, it held so much. Game of Thrones was that long running series. I think it ran for 7 seasons. And at the end of Game of Thrones, a lot of people were really unhappy with how it ended because um, I think it's Khaleesi, the blonde, comes out and rides the dragons and uses her powers to destroy the kingdom with fire. That's Kali. And that's the unchecked feminine rage and what she's capable of. When that rage is unprocessed and unhidden, we act out even through war. We say that Inanna and the we call it the fallen Mars force, activated Eros and war. So she activated this kind of world of lust that we live in, where sexuality and the expression of the goddess force through sexuality has become more lust. And that's an expression of the dark feminine, because the sexual current is the feminine. It's the feminine force. And so when it's being expressed through the channel of lust, it's the shadow side of the dark feminine. So let me just see how you worded it. Okay. The empowered dark feminine is what we're going to be totally embodying and personifying through the whole upcoming work that we're going to do. The empowered dark feminine is when the subconscious mind that had to be fallen and suppressed is able to activate the logos power, the power of the word, to simply speak truth and to face what life brings with a kind of courage and strength that holds the frequency, the sound current of the healed feminine. And so also, Lotus, to go back to that balance of dark and light, that happens through the word. The throat chakra itself contains the masculine and feminine principle and the dark and light. It unites my conscious mind, my solar principle, with the lunar feminine, which is the dark realm of the subconscious mind. When I speak, you're getting a clue of what I have hidden inside me. I want to just take a moment with this because it's really powerful. When we listen to others speak, when we really cultivate the power to listen, and to listen from the heart and to listen from wisdom, I would also add to listen from compassion, because compassion, as the Christ is, compassion and forgiveness actually holds the greatest power. It doesn't mean that you are a pushover or that people can just walk all over you, but it means that you're not threatened by another's wrongdoing or another's faults. You release judgment, and with a neutral mind, you're able to listen. And that's what we all really hope for in life. We hope that we can speak and be heard by someone that isn't ready to just jump in and attack us. It's what children need. They need to be heard and then given the appropriate boundaries. But listening is a huge key to the dark feminine, because when I listen to you speak now, I'm not only hearing what you're saying from your conscious mind, but I'm also receiving the flow of information that's coming from your inner hidden realm. And most people don't realize that when they speak, they're revealing more to who they're speaking to than what they're saying, because there's what we say, and then there's the hidden context between the words that flows out from us. Our language is very revealing, and it's human. So it's not that we're meant to judge everyone and be listening for what they're really saying. But the truth is that the sound current unites the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. When I speak to you, I'm always carrying a little bit of my own wounds and my own past. They color everything that I bring to the planet. And so that's why, as a teacher, you begin to take on more responsibility to really make sure that you understand who you are in the dark realms. It doesn't mean you can get to everything, but you also develop. This is the balancing, Lotus, of the light and the dark feminine. You have enough strength to hear your own words and to catch it when something is more of the ego. I'm going to stop right now because I could go on for a bit, but since it came from you, Lotus, can I ask you if this is answering any question and if you want to throw anything in so it's right from you, so it's not just me talking? I can't hear you yet. So let me see.
I actually enjoy listening to you because it's so revealing. Now I understand more, because I thought the dark feminine was just a wounded, but you have it's bigger than that. So yes, thank you.
And
It's
you
very
said, yeah, it's big on YouTube. You referenced that there's a lot of on the internet about the dark feminine, and so people are coming to it with what they carry and with what they've been privy to kind of really sit with. But it's important because there is some information about the dark feminine that's empowered that is a little bit more about carrying the shadow of Lilith. It's
yeah.
kind of about the rage to go out there and take him on and beat him up. I'll address that though. It's so nice to see you. So beautiful to see you. I love the work you've been doing with your beauty. It's
Thank you
amazing.
so much.
So beautiful. So okay, I'll
You.
mute you and then I'll talk about that. All right.
Okay.
So you can see that, yeah, the dark feminine is everything. And we truly, when we come into matter, we forget voluntarily, we forget our past lives and we forget the wisdom. We have to live the carnal existence of the lower Lilith. We have to crave things that we absolutely need through our root chakra, but we also kind of crave what I call the shadow of Venus. We crave, we learn how to crave attention. We learn how to crave being the best or being beautiful or being chosen. And sometimes that's coming from the wounds. What we are doing here as women right now, first of all, women are profoundly connected to the dark feminine because we actually give birth from the dark feminine, meaning our children, and I'm using the example right now as childbirth, which is relevant for all of us, whether we have children or not, come out of our own dark feminine. And so it's when the child is in the womb, the amount of spiritual influence and power the woman has is far beyond what society will tell. And so my work here has been specifically about fertility. I often, not often, but I've been talking more publicly about how my son was brought in through conscious ritual and it had been prepared for the event that brought him in. And there's many ways that can take place, but also the 9 months in the womb are incredibly powerful because the woman has access to the child in a way that the father never will. It was given through the divine, the archetypal gift and responsibility of woman to really understand what happens between her own mind, heart, and the baby in her belly. This is why we all carry wounds of our mother and our father. And if you've worked with me privately, you know we talk a lot. We go through it and we really look at it because just to let you know that's all to really prepare you to be able to process it. So now let's just I'm going to do one more bit and then we'll go to a different question. Okay. The answer is that when you understand, so there's also the inner feminine is also what we call holy presence. In the dark womb, the dark feminine is where the temple is. It's also the path we take to open the Akashic records. So it's everything, but there's all these dimensions and layers of our subconscious mind, from the crystalline pure to the shallow to the next level, the next level, the next level, down to the very core, which holds what we call in at Art of the Feminine, the divine feminine frequency. And so we go to reclaim, which is the solar feminine Christ force. So, in just the first thing to do, just to put it practical now, is to acknowledge that you have a part of yourself that basically is running your life. I talked about it a lot 2 videos ago with the High Priestess and the Empress. And if you're not aware of it, you'll be in what we call bondage in the underworld. You will not be free. Liberation comes when we make contact. So one of the ways of neutralizing it is called the holy presence. It's the divine mother who exists in the darkness. And so that's why prayer and meditation, even spending time in nature, when I go in nature, I immediately open her presence. She's also, nature is the dark feminine. So, nature itself, the physical world, is the dark feminine. So, when we understand how to relate to our own dark feminine, that's why she's covered in the root chakra, because she's all the way down at the bottom. Even on the tree of life, she's Malkuth, the very root. So when we are in touch with our own dark feminine, nature responds to us and knows. She knows who we are. And that's when we become like Magdalens. We become the goddess. And we're in constant communication with the sound current. By the way, the dark feminine is the silent sound current, it's the unheard word. And it's what we also call the lost word. Okay. This was such a great question. I'm going to see if there's any last part of it. Is the divine fem yes, the divine feminine is the light and dark, and this is the final, yeah, that we'll say. The divine feminine frequency is the balance of the light and the dark, and the balance of the conscious and the unconscious. That's so we don't only want to live in the light, the conscious mind, where I'm seeing everything. Conscious mind really accesses the horizontal plane. The dark feminine, the subconscious, is the vertical plane. So we want to be able to make the cross that blooms the rose. And that is what we call balance. And so, to answer your question, the divine feminine is the balance of the light and dark polarity. And we are not aiming for perfect, because in the underworld, we always have to carry a bit of darkness. It's part of the rule. So, we're never aiming for perfect. But when we reach balance, we can feel it's mind heart coherence as well. We walk in that field, we don't feel threatened. And even though we may be processing for the planet and feel great, deep grief and even rage at certain times, we know where that place is. We know how to get back to it. And so if we need to dive into the rage or the grief, we can go there. In fact, sometimes that's how we reclaim the gift of it and bring it back to just balance, to just balance. And there was one last thing, just one minute. Oh, the holy presence. Let's just take one moment with the holy presence. Okay. Just looking down. So, okay. I am in the seven directions is also to activate the holy presence. Just know the darkness of that presence within you. Sometimes it's called the void, but it's not void. There's more energy, more power, and potential in this space than anywhere in the outer world. Nobody can give you the kind of power that you already have. In the Eastern teachings, or the male lineages and the Advaita, it's really about going into that space, which is your true self or the Christ self. And it's immense, but it's dead silent. And if you haven't been privy to experience it yet, you might think it's just quiet and just dark. But as you really get, we call it lifting the veil, as you begin more and more in relationship with this space, you realize that everything that comes into creation arises from this space. It's the womb. Another word for looking at it in the Eastern teachings is Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman. Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman, the inner world, the stillness and the activity of the goddess. So the actual activity, just to let you know what this platform is about, is the archetypal expression of the goddess creative power. But that always needs to be linked to this inner dark mother, and she is the womb and the divine will. When we link our creative power, even our imagination, to that, it changes everything. So that, thank you for beautiful questions. Amazing. I'll just see if anybody has one that you would like to ask right now. And I won't, that was a long one because I knew it was super layered. I'll move a little quicker now, but I would love to hear if there's anyone who has anything that you would like to bring on right now. Any question, or you could type it in the chat. It's totally up to you. If not, I will look at the Roman Empire. What? Because that's really interesting. The Roman Empire question really goes along with politics and the revival of religion that's happening right
Shannon,
now. Okay.
may I ask a question?
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi there. Where is this
This
coming
is
from?
Lisa here, and I don't even know if I'm on. Oh, I don't see my.
I don't see it either, but I hear you. I'm so glad you're here. That's so
Yeah,
wild. Let me just see something. Lisa, that's wild. Let me I wonder if I need to refresh this screen. I'm so glad you made it in.
I recognize I think you might be asking a question, but I thought maybe prior, just coming off of what you just spoke about, I would ask a little
I
mini question.
would love to hear, and I will jot it down so I make sure to get it. It's so crazy. I can't even see you on the screen. So I don't know how you got in, but I'm really happy you're here.
Okay,
I
I'm
wonder if
so
there's a
glad
bunch
you
of,
made it. Thank you so much, Shannon. It's such a blessing. Oh God, I guess my question is just the subtlety of, it's not subtle, it's pretty distinct, but the mind that comes from the depth. I feel like there is that wisdom, feminine consciousness. I don't know if you want to call it feminine, Christ, distinctly different from the conscious mind that's like really the brain. Like I feel my mind, which is just as necessary, but holds a lot of the pattern of the fear, like the, I don't want to say it's like the reptile mind, but the conscious, even like sharp as a knife mind, like, but also mind that is bringing in the light from above, is feels so
amazing.
different from the mind that's coming from the depth. And sometimes those two minds are really, they're not on the same, they're not at all on the same like page, or, and they even battle. Like I feel one is suppressing the other doesn't trust,
Yeah.
the depth
Oh, it's a
doesn't really
total
trust
disconnect.
the above is like looking down and saying, oh God, no one's going to listen to you down there, like
Yeah.
just leave it to
Oh,
me.
wow.
And so
You're
there's this like,
Thank you, Lisa. It's
people
such
say
an
that.
honor to have you here and get to speak with you for the first time in person. I know you've been in Light Body Yoga. So amazing to have you. You're the one from Light Body Yoga, correct?
Yes,
Yes,
this Lisa
wonderful.
Petrucci here. Sorry, I don't know why my yeah, my little, you don't see my, it's weird.
No
Anyway.
problem. Okay,
Okay,
so
great.
I'm going to go. I'll have you mute for a moment. I'm going to
Okay,
go
thank
ahead
you
and
so
record
much,
this.
Shannon.
Thank you so much. First of all, you are really spiritually tuned in. I mean, that is so intuitive, just the language, the way it came. And so I jotted down so we could really hit all of those. All right. So in the last video I talked about the ego. The ego, and I talked about the devil. This was in the video I just did, which was called Inanna and the feminine Mars mysteries. So the ego, let's just put the ego in the brain. The ego is the limited version of mind. So we have a higher mind, which was our true mind. And I talked about how when we came in, we traded it for a brain and how that corresponds to the devil archetype in the tarot. But that brain can also be called ego. Just because they correlate, the physical brain also is kind of the vehicle of our ego. And that's why you can see in academia, in politics, in all kinds of education, even in art, when someone is really speaking from the brain level of consciousness, the brain is indeed a supercomputer. So our ego, which is our own devil, you'll hear nowadays people talking about Ahriman. Ahriman was Ahriman was an archetype and name that was used in Rudolf Steiner's work in anthroposophy, and it's kind of become really big right now. It's used in some, you'll see it mostly people who kind of lean to the right politically. It sort of fits in with that vibration and frequency, because it's also, it, Ahriman goes back to Mephistopheles, which was from the age of Gemini, which is Gemini is Mercury, and Gemini was the age of the mind, and Mercury. There's other esoteric things around it. So before the age of Taurus, before the age, there was the age of Gemini. We are right now moving from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. Just for anyone who doesn't understand that language, we move through the ages in reverse through the zodiac. So going way back to Gemini, that's when this god of the mind first came in. So if you think about what's happening on this, is a good way to understand what's often called patriarchy. And even the patriarchal religions oftentimes bypass the wisdom of the feminine and the true heart. The heart is connected to both the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. So this brain that is limited by time and space, because the brain dies beyond our physical life. When we leave, the brain is gone, but our mind is still there. But this physical brain is like a supercomputer, and it has a right and left side. It's an instrument of duality. Just by its very nature, we have right brain, left brain. In Kabbalah, in the tree of life, it is Hokmah and Binah. It's wisdom and understanding in the higher world. So, and understanding is really key. Understanding is Binah, and it's the dark feminine. So our deep understanding, like you said, our perception arises from the dark. And if we don't have access to that, we get stuck on the loop of the brain. But the right brain and left brain are always battling each other, just like right wing and left wing politics are always going at it. It's just like the right and left brain, and it corresponds to the mind and the heart and the masculine and feminine. So, but that brain, if we believe that, we glorify brain knowledge, and as we should, it's given us as a tool to navigate the world, and we have to develop our brain. If somebody who doesn't have a very well developed brain will find themselves in trouble, they will find themselves in beholden to the dark side of their own subconscious mind. When we don't have developed 3D consciousness and intuition and just good brain knowledge, we oftentimes are usurped by our own wounds, and we believe suspicious things. If we don't have a good mind of reason, we talked about this in this last video, which was about Aries, reason, the emperor, we're run around by our own wounds. So we have to have some reason, but that mind is limited to the third chakra. It doesn't want to go beyond, and the lower side of the heart chakra, which is the wounded side. It can access power, it can access creativity, it can provide for us. The root chakra is our needs met. It can still create children and be creative. The mind is endlessly creative. The mind is infinite potential in the human brain, just on its own. And it can have power. And it can, but then with love, it gets a little tricky, because when you try to only process love, we're moving into the heart chakra with only the brain, you'll find yourself trapped, because you'll constantly be in duality. One day you feel this way, one day you feel that way. One day you believe this, the other day that. And everything is very temperamental, temporal. The brain, as you mentioned, Lisa, the human brain is the temporal plane, and it can't make up its mind. It's constantly fluctuating. The signs of the mind in the zodiac are Gemini, Virgo, and Libra. So Virgo and Gemini are both ruled by Mercury. And Virgos are very specific and precise and very picky. They really use their mind. Geminis know a lot about a lot of different things. I have a ton of Gemini, but they oftentimes, if it's just purely the shadow side of, or the shallow side of Gemini, they don't really ever choose to go deep, but they know a lot about a lot, and they're great conversationalists. And Libra is that balance. Libra is the balance of the poles. So the answer is that without contact with the feminine dimension, which scares the mind is afraid of it. It has natural defense mechanisms. That's what we see in the outer world: war, control of populations, fear of people who don't believe like we do or look like we do. That's the mind. The mind processes through fear a lot. And so, although it can, this is the one final thing to realize, although the mind was capable of getting us to space, of developing these highly beautiful institutions for learning, science, all the great advances in medicine and technology, it hasn't healed love. It hasn't healed poverty. It hasn't healed our relationship to Gaia. So look at, for all the wealth we have, what we don't have. We have poverty covering the globe, war covering the globe. We have, relationships fail now at a rate that we've never ever seen, and the human race is continuing to descend. The mind does that. It creates and then it goes into chaos. It can't get to the real heart of the solution, although, like you said, the mind and the higher aspect of the mind, super consciousness, which also exists within the subconscious realm, it needs to work with the subconscious realms. It actually can have power. When the mind, the ego mind, becomes neutralized, then the Christ mind opens, and then working with the inner world becomes so powerful. The inner world is the Christ Sophia. It's the Christo Sophia, and it's the imagination that works through the heart. So let me just see. I'm going to look down what you said. Yes, the mind is like a knife. You said knife. I just want to go through some of these archetypes. In the tarot, the swords and air are the mind. The mind is a knife. And Gemini, the archetype of Gemini is the Hebrew letter Zayin, which is the sword. The mind is a sword. Everything you said was like really deep and really tuned in. So our brain is meant to actually be a sword of truth. When it becomes healed, we can see the truth, not with judgment, and not to go out and attack anything else. But for as much truth as we can see it, and we can cut away what we don't need. And that is more important now than ever in politics, because in politics, people, the whole political level is stuck on the brain level. And so the fights are endless, whether it's right wing, whether it's on Twitter, which has all the deep rise of populism. And populism is the people, but that speaking out in populism comes from the unresolved pain of the generations in the subconscious realm, and it's meant to arise. Populism is when the people speak, and they say when the people speak, God is speaking, but it's oftentimes very tainted by all the wounds. But it has to rise so that we look at it and say, what's going on? Let's assess everything that's happening. So let me see how I can bring this back to all of you. Really, this is not even just a subtle question, by the way, Lisa. So how can we cultivate the power of union? We work with what we call the threefold soul prism when we work with the magician and the high priestess and the empress. This was a system that we developed in the Art of the Feminine podcast, and it's when our mind is our magician and is steadfast, we can command our subconscious mind and she will produce for us. You see how this first came about through affirmations, and the affirmation movement was about that. Like, I believe in myself. I accept miracles into my life. Discernment, activate, like all these old mantras. We even have a bunch of them in Light Body Woman. They really work, especially when we're in that place. When we allow just to go in and first allow the mind to come in, she has to arise first. And then this is what real deep meditation is. Then we begin to receive the archetypes and we just talk. We have that inner conversation, and that's where we create our life. So let me see if there's anything else. This is the fully realized Christ mind and what we call the Christos, Sophia. And right now, how you can sharpen your mind is to begin, because the mind is actually meant to be Adam and the heart is Eve. The mind is meant to serve. And so when you just take a step back and allow yourself to see what you are carrying and just accept it. And even what I will say is a fast way to get to it. Go into the holy presence. She will heal both the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The holy presence that we just talked about is the immense depth of Sophia and her womb. Let's take one moment and then we'll talk about the Roman Empire, Caesar, the land of Caesar. Let's just take a moment to say I am and experience the depth. The subconscious realm in the dark feminine is the depth. So just taking a moment. It's already very still. I can feel the silence just among you all. And I'm really grateful for the field that is really coming from all of you. Just take a breath. We allow ourselves to surrender. Surrender is the first part of saying I am when you tune in at home alone. First, surrender. Give God everything at the altar that you've been carrying. And just first know that you're carried by this field. It's your perfect self and your mother and your father. And now we'll just activate the field with I am. And so just silently repeating after me. I am before me. I am behind me. I am at my left. I am right. I am above me. I am below me. I am too. And just feeling your breath flow in, appreciating your breath, the next in breath, and then just hold it for a moment. When you hold it that moment, you're speaking to the inner plane, you're speaking to the subconscious realm and kind of stimulating a little awareness there. And then exhale. And now a profound mantra, I am, I am, I know. I am, I am, I know. Okay, let's just take one moment. This is the place. This place is here before you were even born, and it will be here eternally. It's always, 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 you couldn't be here if this presence wasn't the the back of what you are. In other words, that we don't come into the world without this dark shield that holds all the energy. We just have to learn how to go there. And it technology in our modern world is making it a bit harder because we're getting used to the speed of constantly being out and about and on technology. And so, because I find this even in my own work, where it used to be much easier to go to this place, it's a bit harder now. It's more than a bit harder. And so, make this your own. If it's the only thing you ever get from Art of the Feminine, make I Am your own prayer, because you can see it doesn't take an hour of meditation. It works immediately. And if you're having an off day, you might not think it's working, and that's okay too. But do the prayer anyway, because the angels that live within your subconscious, the angels are the Elohim are within you, and they know that prayer. So if you say it, they're going to be working for you and working with you. We all have off days where it's like, oh my God, can I get there? Because there's so much going off. But the more you get familiar with this place, it's always there for you. So let me see if there's anything else. She is the holy presence. She's the field, and the I Am is her solar sun. So she's like the Virgin Mary, or like the goddess Isis, the mother, the great mother, and her son is Christ, the I Am that works in the world. We came to the world, so we have to be in the world. We don't get to just hide out, whether we like it or not. And in some days, it's getting hard these days. We have to go out and interface with people. And so that creative force, her son is the logos. And just know also, if you can have compassion and forgiveness and try not to judge people and just live in love, but also great, great, great power, your world will get easier. And also, I feel like I want to start teaching on this, but I can't get into it now. When you learn how to create from this place, you don't need anything else, meaning like there's no competition. There's no approval from the outer world. It becomes between you and God. And you also gain a certain kind of humility that you're here to do what you do. It doesn't mean life will be perfect. Some of us came with a contract, which you can find out in your subconscious mind, to live in a certain way that might go against what looks like success, but we each have our own divine blueprint. And so I just want to add that, because it doesn't mean that we automatically create whatever we want. If you're on the spiritual path, you have work you came to carry. That's part of the work we do in all the mentorships. So somebody asked about the Roman Empire. I'm just going to look at that question really quick because it was interesting and fun that it came in. Okay. Okay. All right. So somebody said, how do we transmute the Roman Empire? Stuck in the womb. So much power there. Is it love? Capital. I wonder if that meant capitalism, but the crone, the maiden. Okay. So the Roman Empire, in some ways, you hear, like, there was a meme going around, I think it was last year, about why all guys think about the Roman Empire. And you hear the Roman Empire created so much. Like Rome, a lot of our great philosophers and mystery schools come out of the Roman Empire. However, it was still the land of Caesar. It was still ruled by war and conquering and the great male archetype. And even the Vestal virgins that served the Roman Empire had to be the pristine, virginal, youthful energies that that were in service of the Roman Empire. And that's a beautiful archetype, because spiritually it's correct. The purified feminine energy is the greatest fortress you could ever have. It's the shield of the Holy Spirit. So purifying our feminine energy is noble, but in terms of the male to female, and there were goddesses, there was absolutely goddess worship and some paganism and some things. There was heathenism and different lineages that held aspects of the truth. But the archetype itself of Caesar is the land of Caesar. It represents the land of 3D. And so when we only are thinking in the land of 3D, we want to build the kingdom for Rome. We want to make it all powerful. It was a founding archetype for where I live and in the United States and the Western world. It's absolutely to be honored, but it still held the vibration of the underworld, meaning the land of Caesar, meaning here, the land of cause and effect, where the land of heavy karma, the land where the goddess went from being the holy, divine, feminine Mars Shakti force to being the fallen Eros and war. The Roman Empire was the perfect embodiment of that war. And think of the what do you call them? The parties that or the orgies they had. I forget what they're called, but the baths and the sexuality was very worshipped. And I was just talking to somebody about that. The reason Christianity became so appealing to women at the time that Rome assimilated with when Rome at the Nicene Council, somebody's off. I'm just gonna check. Oh, there you are. Okay. So at the time of the Nicene Council, when Rome took on Christianity as the state religion, but even before that, the early Christians in the first few hundred years of Christianity, the women in Rome and the Gentile women and other women were very attracted to Christianity for the reason that it held marriage as being sacred. And I've said in a recent video, that was a very powerful, that's one of the really powerful aspects of Christianity, is that it really does honor the equality of the male and female in love in marriage, and the sanctity of the commitment, and the platform of raising children if you have children, and the sharing of the resources, the equal, that all came out of Christianity. Really helped to birth that forward. They had other shadows that were carried around it, but it was really something appealing to women. Women were like, finally, we don't have to only be virginal. We can marry for love and not as property, or not as the young, trophy for the old, much, much older man, but we can marry for love and be on an equal footing. So Rome had that kind of like high male status. How can we transmute it? We're transmuting it right now. Okay, the maiden, the mother, the crone. Okay, let me just look into that. She said, which archetypes transmute it? Well, the crone is huge. It's why we're working so much with the crone, because when woman is disposable as she ages, in a way that's even more so than the man, the crone is disposable, and it's the crone that holds the wisdom. So until we value the trajectory of the female through her various stages of fertility and life, and honor the wisdom that is gained, there's a specific journey that women take where they gain a deep feminine wisdom. There were certain tribes that honored woman as she aged, because they believed, these were certain Native American tribes that believed that the woman went through ascension as she entered into the later stages of her life, as her fertility cycle began to change, because she went through a burning. Here we call it, we call it a hot flashes, but they believed that burning was a purification of the ego, which is profound. That is profound. I just want to say this because it's all women here too. It's all women in the school. So think about that. As we age, we come into a humility, a power. We no longer have ourselves like on the market as being like, we have to humble ourselves. We're no longer the hottest thing out there. And we may even attract a different kind of attention, even if we feel beautiful and all of those things. Our arc field changes, and instead of embracing it and really understanding that pure power, we call it here, for who asked that question, we call it the eternal maiden principle. And I'll share when I send out the link to this replay, the eternal maiden. The eternal maiden is when you go through the stage of the crone in physicality and physical form as a woman, And what you give birth to is your eternal maiden. That is really the body of light consciousness. It will, and we're building that because there will come a time when we won't even need to incarnate like we do and experience the suffering or rejection or being disposed of. That oftentimes is a huge wound on this planet. It's such a big wound, and women are brave for carrying it. We don't have to carry it in every lifetime. Like, there's plenty of women who don't have to touch that, and that's amazing. The more, the better. So, but it's a fear that Roman Empire archetype, to go back to the question, is lodged in the subconscious memory of women, and we're healing it right now. How can we heal this? Because the world is really, really divisive right now. The right political right can't stand anything feminism, any kind of feminism. They are, in their specific situations. I wrote down to talk a little bit about politics, but the right is fighting against feminism and secular society, and locally for me in the US, immigration, and there's one more really big thing. Oh, just fear of any kind of system that's trying to make things, you know, um, a little more fair. And there's a reason for that, because that has also been abused on the left, meaning the left goes crazy too. The left pushes, the left, I always say the left trolls the right, the left political party trolls the right. Their shadow is that they troll the right. And I see it as like a little sister taunting her big brother. That's this big, strong guy, and he's like going through his changes as a man. And she's like, being, haha, you can't get me. I'm a girl, you can't, and she's making him mad, and he's like, and he doesn't know what to do, because obviously it's his little sister. If he even so much as touches her or speaks to her wrong, he's going to get in a lot of trouble. But there's some taunting that comes from the left politically. So what I want to say about that is that the left holds, okay, just one moment. The left fear is kind of fear of any kind of the left is a little more anti-structure, and for some legitimate reasons is a little more secular. That goes back to the ancient wounds of the Roman Empire, and of even when it became the church. And there's a book called The Darkening Age that's about the fight between the church and the pagans. It's one of the greatest books on this topic, The Darkening Age. But the church annihilated the feminine. It annihilated the pagans and the pagan temples. It was actually opposite of science back then as well, because the pagans held more of the mystery schools and science. And so that memory is held on the political left. And it's the memory of dogmatic and authoritarian and patriarchal religion, organized religion, becoming like almost like authoritarian and fascist, which can happen. It can happen on both sides. But so that pushback on the left is, we don't want your control. We don't want to be told to do with our bodies or with our sexuality. And it's a legitimate argument, but there's an underbelly to it. So all of this has to do with the Roman Empire. And I would say for all of you here that are studying with any work that I've have out, it's always about balance. The one reason that I personally can't really feel owned by any political party, the voice of this platform, is because if you get in too deep with them, you'll find yourself censoring yourself. And I believe in voting. We have an upcoming election. I believe in choosing what you really relate to, and even having friends and all of that. There's nothing wrong with that. But internally keeping your sovereignty, so that you never find yourself censoring yourself because you're afraid you'll be outcast. That's the divine feminine. The divine feminine wisdom looks at the right and says, I really like this patriarchal father that's strong and that takes care of his children and that is powerful enough to build a life and to honor his partner. Like, that ideal archetype of the right is super powerful, and you can't help but love it, especially in union, in a relationship, just to have someone who really steps up and can hold those kinds of that structure and protection and boundaries. um so I like that, and accountability and responsibility and some limits, some law that says, okay, wait a minute, we need to see how much we're spending or what we're doing, and just with a wise eye look at it. Those are some good things. And also sometimes they call out the misuse of identity politics. The left is absolutely holds the beauty and the sovereignty of art, that we want to keep religion out of our art, even though in the divine feminine wisdom, the artist becomes very spiritualized, meaning there is a frequency in what we create. There is some art that holds a low vibe, a lot of art. And yet the right to create it and express who we are, the left really stands up for that. And they really stand up for racial equality and have really pushed for it, even though there's a kind of a mixed future, or future. That's funny I said that. There's a mixed past where the right and left switched positions. It was actually the left that at one point that was pushing for slavery. Um, but there's good wisdom on both sides. And so the divine feminine wisdom, again, the divine feminine frequency is the balance of the right and left. And as we awaken as humans, we'll be able, that's just wisdom to say, yeah, I don't like what they're pushing this too far, or they look like they're about to go down the wrong path. Let me just think about what's happening right now, because somebody did ask about religion or politics. What's happening right now in the world with politics is absolutely wild, because the media plays a huge part. I personally read the New York Times every morning, and I always have. I'm a New Yorker. I spent many, many, many years in New York, and I've just for over 20 some years, over 25, read it. So I read it and I know it's there, and I enjoy it. And then I also, over the past many years, had sort of kind of looked at other media voices, because I realized at some point I didn't know what was going on. And I was curious, going back to the time of the pandemic, and just all that was happening. It was such a breakdown, and I was seeing how the left became more than biased and started reporting in ways that weren't, I could see were not fair. And so that's the only reason I wandered over to take a peek, like, what's going on? What are they saying? And it was so eye-opening to me, because I realized if I watch this long enough, I'm like, oh yeah, I get it. But if I read this again long enough, I go back to being like, yeah, this is who I really am. And I could do it to this day, because there truly are wise conversations that need to be had happening on both the right media and left media. But it's become so separated that in the US, the election, if you are reading what's being said here, you'll think that we're just one step away from Nazi Germany, which is so sad to say. And if you're reading it here, you'll think that we're just one step away from everybody becoming a genderless, like, controlled world where there's no freedoms, and where, like, there's no longer a United States. I don't know if that is even, I could go a little deeper with it, but these are two different views, and both have legitimate worries and concerns. Both think they're right. So in this time, this is what I will leave you with on this. The only way forward is to hold the frequencies we're talking about, the frequencies of meditation, of connecting to the dark feminine, meaning that power within, and taking it day by day. There's no way around it. We have to go through it. There's no it like, I believe that both sides that don't awaken are going to end up taking each other out. In the near term, there may be more of a solution on this side or this side, but politics has become quite, I mean, people are playing, and we're breaking all the rules all around. We're losing that old system of being like, no, we have to do it. The things are starting to slide a bit. So as we walk through these times, please know that you will be a light when you carry this wisdom. Support people, call things out that you see that are wrong, but also know that there's such a psychological operation through the algorithms in social media and news that oftentimes you may be watching something for a while and then tune into something else and be like, oh my God, it's actually not that, it's this. And that's the confusion right now. So the prophecies were that this would be the time of the Antichrist. What that means, the Christ is the mind. And so when everything is confusion, pure confusion, that's the Antichrist. When there's no longer an up or down or right or left, but this is where that exists. That's why we say before me, behind me, at my left, at my right, above me, below me, and unto me. We include creation, and we ask for the wisdom to come to us. Intuition will be the channel which gives you, I feel like this is for Lisa too. Lisa, what you just said, what Lisa said earlier when she came in on and talked about the subconscious, this is the word to take away: intuition. Your intuition is that link, direct link to the dark mother within you, who gives you what you need in the moment. All the power that ever was or will be is here now, right now. Your answers should come from this place. Be guided from this place. We have a big, many years ahead of us, especially with the North Node dipping into Pisces. So I wrote down dating world, social media. I think we kind of covered that. We covered love, religions. A lot of people are returning to religions for some structure as a life raft. There's nothing wrong with that. They're partly embattled in the ideological battles. And I find that my work can't really be contained in a religion, although I have reverence for some of the traditions I came from. I can also see how they can get, there's so many different people within them. There's such a spectrum of belief, but they can also be used. And yet they're part of this process. And so if religion is where you find it, it can be a beautiful place to just rest, the green pastures where you just lay down and let God give to you. Okay, I'm going to see if there's any other questions. Let me see the dark womb, if there's anything else I said. Kali, Lilith, feminine agency is feminine power. That's what the dark feminine is also about, Lotus, having the agency. Okay. Is there anyone else? I saw a couple people come on. Would you, Jade, do you have a question, or is there anything you want to ask? I just saw you come in, or Paula or Maria. And oh my gosh, I'm so glad you could join us. I can't remember how to pronounce your name, but I'm glad you got to pop on today. If anybody wants to turn on their camera or ask a question, I'll just wait a moment. So sometimes you hear the dark feminine talked about as rage and holy rage and jealousy, or about the anger of patriarchy. I believe that has to be tempered. I don't believe in just, I'm not the kind of person who believes that the feminism that's about women just going crazy and attacking men. I believe that that's just the opposite polarity of patriarchy. And I think we do have to gain some mastery of our own. What I have found in my own work is that over the years, by sitting with certain things that really, really bothered me, we all get triggered in the depth of our being about certain things. By forcing ourselves to sit with them, eventually we get there. Eventually we know with certainty, but sometimes the divine will have us carry it for years. Like, what is the real answer to this question? In that case, if intuition just tells you to keep sitting with it, just keep sitting with it. It's part of the journey. So I don't see anyone asking questions. I'll look in the chat, and if not, we'll close out. Oh, and you never talk too much. Would listen about it even more longer. Okay, great. Thank you so much for asking that question. I don't see, oh, there's Jade. Okay, great. Yay, I'm so happy. Okay. Hello, are you,
I have a question, if that's okay.
it's so nice to see you.
So nice to see you, Shannon. the polarity in relationships between masculine and feminine, the more I understand it, the more I see the differences. And in my relationship, we're learning to respect and appreciate the differences. Like I'm more connection focused, he's more productivity focused, and just different lens we see things. It's all my personal feelings, and I take all everyone's feelings into account. And he has a more zoomed out strategy way of looking at things where feelings are kind of kept to the side and duty is what's
Yes.
important. And just learning to navigate it, it's just interesting. It feels like we were meant to be different. We seem to be attracted to something different, but it's like a funny game that we're attracted to the person who's completely different to us in a lot of ways. Just any thoughts around that?
Thank you so much. It's so nice to see you. Now, I feel like since I last saw you, I can't remember. I feel like there were big things happening. I'm so good, so
I'm
happy to
engaged
see you.
now.
You're engaged. That's right. I remember there was big things coming for you.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Oh, I'm so
Thank you.
happy you two are at this place. So this is so profound. The masculine and feminine, which can manifest in you know, between any people, even with friends, but in an intimate relationship between a man and a woman, the gift between your differences, literally, if I can say, I've genuinely in my lifetime, in the beautiful relationship, I've had a couple that I got to experience that were deep and profound and committed. It is true that we naturally can get a little irritated or triggered, or just say like, why are you doing it this way? Or don't you understand where I'm coming from? Like, I'm looking deep right now at my personal feelings, and they're like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Do you know what I mean? Seeing the big picture, and how can we, they truly, truly complement each other. And if both were just like you, it wouldn't float. You know what I mean? It's like you start to realize, and when you really appreciate it, like especially the guy who you're saying is into productivity and, you know, responsibility, and just like seeing the big view, and kind of like, men, I believe, when they're like that, are meant to be able to not feel every little tiny thing. You know what I mean? Like it's like, even my son is really, he's super artistic and has a lot of Venus. So he's got the feminine side, but he's such a Capricorn with Aries rising. And so it used to bother me sometimes when he'd like come in and just say something. And then I realize, as he gets older, now he's super powerful. He's a sophomore in college. Whenever I need any advice, even in my business, I ask him, and he always knows it, because he can always see from a different perspective. And I've learned to love the masculine perspective. And he carries quite a literal 3D, how you build, how you rise, how you hold something. And so you mentioned your feelings. With feelings, though, there comes a time that sometimes you have to say, just speak. The whole use of the word and the power of the word, and just being able to speak honestly also about what you need, is really important, so that those differences can be honored, and so that they're not what ends up taking it down. Because if resentment or contempt build up, you'll hold the anger, and that's the dark feminine. You'll be resentful, and then you'll turn it on yourself and start to be mad at yourself, because you'll be like, I'm sabotaging my own relationship. And the inner conflict, I love this person, but I'm so angry, and every time I speak, I'm sabotaging it. Just know you're not meant to repress your feelings or suppress them, because that's, your emotions also give you information that you need. Your feminine emotions, like if something's not right, you're also meant to look at them. So just if something really feels like, oh, I'm really thinking about this and I'm bothered or worried, listen to it, because you need to give it some expression, and then be like, is this something I need to just stop and communicate about, so that I can let it go? Meaning, not let it build. Letting something build that isn't expressed will bring everything down. It's what puts holes in the ship. Like your relationship is a ship, and each time there's another hole, it starts to go down. So having the strength and the power of that balance to be able to say, look, it's probably nothing, or, you know, I always value where you're coming from, but I feel like I'm just at a place, something's kind of coming up, and it would be super helpful if you could just kind of come into my vibration and sit and really listen to where I'm at right now and ask that of him. Because sometimes you can say, look, I know that these are your gifts. This is what you are so strong at, but this is a moment where I'm just going to ask you to kind of come into my sensitivity and just really have a heart to heart. And then sometimes he might be like, Jade, I need you to toughen up. And we're like, we got to get this done. Come on, girl, you can get it. You know what I mean? And sometimes as women, we say, okay, I'm like all over the place, but I'm gonna, and that also feels good. I had this thing with my son where I've had it with my partner too, but where there's also something called alpha, light body alpha that I teach. It's about women being alpha, having the power just to speak the truth and to not have to crumble. Do you know what I mean? Like, meaning a lot of times I know when I look back at my relationships where they fell, I didn't feel the self worth enough to just speak what I was really thinking. And so we developed in light body yoga, it's called light body alpha, where your strong feminine is just the ability to say, hey, we need to talk, like I have something to say about this, and it's okay. You're not worried that they're going to be not be attracted to you or not. I find that men also, this is a masculine feminine thing, really appreciate when women can just talk. Obviously sometimes we break down crying and sometimes we have to, but they like to know where they stand. Like a guy just kind of likes to know, like, what's going on right now, why are you acting this way, like, can you just tell me? Because sometimes we play games without realizing it too, when we're pouting or we're upset. That may not even be you, but do you know what I mean, when you're carrying it around? So you change your behavior, like women stop being intimate with the guy, or they stop like doing something special they normally do. And it's kind of like because they want them to realize, oh, something's wrong, you know? But I think that, can you say anything back? Is there anything that you want to add to what we just said, to what I said?
No, that's just really helpful. And yeah, it is that balance. Like sometimes he is like, we don't have time to get into this right now. We've got a job to do. Come on. And I have to pull myself up and like, okay. Uh,
Guys are so, like, men are way more willing to say we don't have time right now, let's put it off. My downfall was that I was like, right now. Meaning like it's so urgent, we have to talk. Do you know what I mean? So there
yeah,
is that balance. Sometimes it's like the balance. Every now and then he should be able to drop everything when you'd be like, no, this is the real deal. Like I
yeah.
feel like I can't contest. But sometimes you say, okay, we can talk about it tonight.
And I think we are quite balanced. And I had to learn to do exactly what you just say to him, I just need you to listen, because he would like fix the problem. If I was starting to talk, he would kind of want to rid me of the sadness or rid me of whatever the emotion, when I just wanted him to be with me in it and see me.
Such a
So
That's such a male Mars Venus thing.
yeah,
Men feel helpful when they can fix. And so, but trust
yeah,
me, there were sometimes I wished I would have let my guy do the fixing that he wanted to do. I was like, it would have been so much better if I just let him, because sometimes it's good to really get to know him and just see, what does he mean by that, and is it a success when he does it? Because I found out with my partner, most of the time that he wanted to fix it, it was actually, I appreciated what he did, and I was like, oh my God, this is genius. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah.
So it's a balance
It's
between,
a balance, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But
yeah,
the main thing also is keep always that your ability to express what you're feeling, even if it is a fear. Do you know what I mean? Especially in relationships, sometimes there's worrying about any kind of wandering outside the relationship, even if it's whatever little thing it is. Sometimes there's an event. It might just be that you went to a party and you like caught him looking, and this may not be for you, but every now and then there's a female thing that makes us spiral, where we're like,
mm,
oh my gosh, or, there's different kinds of events that, and if it's something that really goes to that place, to know that you are, it's better for the relationship when you can speak the truth. If you can collect yourself before you do it, it's usually more successful. Do you know what I mean? Meaning, if you take a little time and just meditate and go in kind of even, it helps.
yeah,
It's not always possible. Sometimes there are meltdowns, we're human and it's messy, but the more communication and love is all, it's 100% of it. It's how we know what's happening. And then also developing as a woman the energetic intuition to know the difference women are just deeper usually than men, meaning like we just can feel what's going on. And so you may feel things and be like, okay, I'm just going to give him his space. Like I'm just without saying what's going on, or I'm just going to give a little space, because that too, as women, we're more hyper vigilant, and it's always kind of in our field that we're thinking about the relationship or what's happening. And sometimes it is good to just give it a little space and to be able to read them intuitively, because then you can save even some things that could have been problematic. I know you have all of that. And
Thank you.
so happy for you. Thank you for coming to the Q&A. It was so great to see
Yeah.
you. I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else that would like to say anything? Everybody's welcome. I think there's some people on we can't see. This is recorded, and I'm going to send it out just to let anyone know who came on camera, that it will be seen by some people, but it's I'm just going to send it to the list. It was so nice to be here with you today. I think that's it, unless I see anyone in the next moment. All right. Thank you for, oh, I should tell you, I think a lot of you are in it already, but there's an upcoming course. It's Inanna's Holy Descent Goddess Ritual. This course is going to be based Kabbalistically, and we're working with the archetypes, and it's really, really about the process of how we released our wisdom, power, and love, and how we're reclaiming it. This course is designed to be the course that we bring in before Pisces, before the North Node enters Pisces, so that what we leave with on winter solstice, it starts on Samhain, the goddess high holy day, and ends on winter solstice eve. It's so holy. It's 8 Fridays in a row. It's recorded. And I just want to say that the purpose of it is, and I know a lot of you are already signed up, that it is really to understand your feminine power and agency, your wisdom, your love, and your truth going forward. And we're going to go to some places that I haven't yet gone to. So it was so great to have you here today. I send you all off with a lot of love, and I look forward to whenever I might see you again. Thank you. Thank you, Paula. I appreciate it. Okay. Bye. Namaste. I'll see you soon. I have a couple big videos coming up, one for the Scorpio New Moon, and then I'm doing a video I'm collaborating with a friend this week, and I'll be sending that video out as well. All right. Bye, everyone. Okay. Stop recording. Okay.